Fallout 4 is the most recent Fallout game with enough dignity to not cause its namesake against itself to such an extent that it ruins not just the reputation of the franchise, but of the entire developer. Besides being the last actual Fallout game, it is by far the best in terms of actual gameplay, being as it has the refinements and updates of the creation engine without the lazy design of Fallout 76. Being as I've never talked about the engine as a topic, it may seem weird for me to start now. The creation engine is a decent enough engine, if you can overlook its few major flaws. These flaws including some nasty glitches, especially lighting issues, and a lot of ways for players to manipulate it. On the other hand, it really just can't hold up to some of the other engines used around the time, namely the likes of Unreal 4, which is by far more advanced and better looking, the Titanfall branch of the Source engine used in 2016's Titanfall 2, and the id Tech 6 engine of Doom 2016, all of which make the creation engine look more obsolete than VHS. Graphically, Fallout 4 is interesting because its textures and effects are just fine, and even stand up decently to other similar engines, such as the aforementioned Unreal 4. But for some fucking reason, Fallout 4's lighting is about as good as Mass Effect Andromeda's animations. Absolutely abysmal, and a complete disservice to the textures and effects present within the same damn game. Taking a quick diversion to options, Fallout 4 lacks so many modern options that Doom 3 from 2004 manages to outdo it, with some of those missing options including a field of view slider and in-game graphical options, both of which are available in much older games, such as everybody's favourite war-themed hat simulator Team Why the Hell Can't You Defend the Fort 2. Although, the default field of view is 80, which is perfectly serviceable if you're not a purist. Letting the graphics take a backseat, the story is actually pretty great. Sort of. I say sort of because the story unique to Fallout 4 is rather generic. You play a parent originally named Nate or Nora, both of whom are standard semi-successful suburban parents of a newborn. The story starts off with the Great War beginning and nuclear bombs being dropped, while you manage to get yourself frozen in the Vault 111 icebox, thank you to Nate's military history. Then while you're in said icebox, a bald asshole named after a cereal brand is sent in to retrieve your son, and kills your spouse in the process before calling you the backup and fucking off faster than a game reviewer confronted with a social situation. Eventually you get let out and leave Vault 111, probably noticing the cryolator locked in a cabinet on the way out. After you leave, you do the obvious fatherly thing and go chase your son down, eventually meeting all the factions and hearing a lot about a mysterious institute on your way. Eventually, you manage to get into the institute, and then have to choose one of the 4 endings, each of which is quite obvious in how it's going to go right from meeting the factions. These endings are about as inevitable as exams at high school due to the fact that every single one of the primary 4 factions are stereotypes. Not just any stereotypes though, they are the most stereotypical stereotypes to ever stereotype. The Minutemen are rebels, the Railroad are hippies, the Brotherhood of Steel is a military, and the Institute is just a group of mad scientists. The fact that the Institute doesn't already own the entire Commonwealth is actually the biggest surprise I got throughout the entire game, given how advanced their technology is, and the fact that they can practically manufacture their own soldiers as they please. The main 2 guns that stay very useful throughout the entire game are the combat rifle and the laser rifle, each of which use very common ammunition types and do enough damage to reach the end game just fine. Besides the guns that flop harder than my YouTube videos, namely the minigun and pipe weapons, which are more obsolete than bows and arrows are in real life within 30 minutes of you acquiring them. Most of the guns have one of a few issues. They either have rare ammo, are outright obsolete, or are just too situational. There has never been a situation where I was thinking to myself, damn, I could really use a Gatling laser right now, or I need something more damaging than my highly modified automatic low recoil double damage combat rifle with a quick reload extended box magazine and red dot sight. The other weapons are just kinda redundant once you get a decent legendary combat rifle, such as the Overseer's Guardian, a double shot legendary combat rifle you can buy in Vault 81. You heard me right, you can buy a double shot combat rifle, which is effectively a double damage rifle to begin with, and still accepts basically any mod you could ever want to put on it. Gameplay-wise, Fallout 4 is pretty great. Movement-wise, Fallout 4 is far better than Fallout 3 or New Vegas with its much more modern engine and much less restrictively slow movement speed. The gunplay is smooth and refined in comparison to the older Fallout games, without any of the bullet spread that ruined New Vegas' gunplay faster than getting shot in the head will ruin your life. The guns themselves are completely fine, although lacking in the variety of guns found in other games, with all of them just being basic gun types that you then add upgrades and modifications to. This is interesting and certainly functional, although a little boring at times because most of the guns are completely obsolete after a certain point in the game, while others are fine from almost the start of the game till right at the end. Sure, you could use a build that makes great use of a Gatling laser, but the ammo is extremely expensive and the gun itself is rather impractical compared to the combat rifle. So why would you do that from a sheer practicality perspective? You wouldn't. You would only do it for fun, or if you're trying to challenge yourself, maybe for the sake of masochism if you're trying to use the pipe rifle. However, there are multiple playstyles that can work, and that means that sometimes other weapons can be preferable. These being weapons such as the Deliverer variant of the 10mm pistol, in a stealth playthrough that is. The Deliverer variant comes with a silencer pre-equipped, and has the VATS Enhanced legendary effect, making it more effective in VATS, which is very good for stealth. Although I could complain all day about Fallout 4's boring ass weapons, I think it's time to talk about something a little bit more positive. The fact that I'm positive the weapons are bloody boring. Just kidding, I'm actually going to talk about the weapon mods. The weapon mods in Fallout 4 are pretty great, in my opinion. They provide a lot of customization and upgradability to weapons that would otherwise end up obsolete, and in that one fell swoop also make most of the quote-unquote late-game weapons completely obsolete due to their expensive ammo and other such shortcomings. But on the topic of modification, another thing that can be modified is power armor, which in this game is pretty unique because it acts more like an exoskeleton or a mech suit than it does actual armor, and is very useful because it always provides good protection compared to other armor, but does use fusion cores to remain powered. But you know what? It's fine. I can get past the boring weapons. A lot of games have boring and obsolete weapons, like every modern military shooter ever. Call of Duty especially. And to be fair, the rest of the game is good. The exploration is fun and intriguing, with a lot of hidden story and lore just waiting to be found, such as a tale of a kid who managed to get himself stuck in a fridge for 200 years. No, I'm not kidding. The skill tree is serviceable and nothing more, with very understandable upgrades ranging from adding extra damage levels of simple to some fairly complex upgrades. The questing is also far out standard pretty good, with quite a few great quests leading you to interesting and unique locations, with the exception to that being the Radiant quests, which are about as repetitive and boring as the Call of Duty franchise has been since the days of the mid-2000s. And now it's time to knock the companion AI, because it can be completely retarded, like yours truly. Sometimes it won't get into power armor, sometimes it won't walk through doors, and every time you're trying to be stealthy, it will give your location away to every enemy on the entire map, before blurting out some sort of danger line and then attacking with whatever weapon it happens to have to hand. That and the AI's aim can sometimes seem to be about as good as that of a stormtrooper, fucking useless. Although this does also apply to enemies, and doesn't happen very often to either. And, well, since we're talking about AI, let's also talk about the NPCs, which are, to be fair, quite cool and do have a lot of personality. In fact, I don't think there's an exceptionally shallow character in the entire game, which might be the most unrealistic thing about the entire game of Fallout 4, seeing as there are enough one-note people in real life to populate the entirety of Fallout 4's virtual Boston as many times as the Institute has since. On the topic of virtual Boston, you do get the opportunity to build your own bases and villages in the form of settlements. Building these settlements takes resources you can find while travelling the Commonwealth in the form of junk, although you can also buy junk or resource shipments from traders. You then use this junk as resources to build your devices, buildings, and literally anything else you could probably think of besides the kitchen sink and the one thing that you actually need, because you're either missing a single screw or that one upgrade you skimped on in favour of upgrading the already insane damage of your overmodded combat rifle. Then there's the survival mode, which feels like an entirely different game. Take vanilla Fallout 4, splice it with a survival game, adding hunger, thirst and sleeping mechanics, sprinkle on some diseases and other such ailments before you take the health pool of everything in the game and tune it down tenfold. And that's how you get survival mode. It's quite fun and a completely different experience, forcing you to explore and plan, else you run the risk of running out of extra health supplies, food or water in the middle of an enemy base, or worse yet, get tired and start suffering the effects of sleep deprivation, leading to your death by random headshot courtesy of that one enemy sniper that had you pinned down for the last 30 minutes while you quickly drained all of your health supplies, then food and water in a futile attempt to escape. However, even though you're as fragile as your iPhone screen, so are your enemies, and a single well-placed bullet from most weapons will put them down just as well as it will you. In conclusion, Fallout 4 is a good game, better than some people gave it credit for being on release, as they were too busy complaining that it isn't Fallout New Vegas. In reality, Fallout 4 is good, but is it worth your money? Well, that depends on how you think about it. If you don't mind giving Bethesda some money after the Fallout 76 scandal, which I know quite a lot of you would, and happen to like open world RPGs, then it's certainly worth your money and your time, because the game itself has a nice campaign length and can be replayed quite a lot, but also has quite a lot of side content to easily flesh out 200 hours of gameplay. But if you don't want to pay Bethesda anything, you can pick it up on G2A for next to nothing and it's still worth your money. Thanks for watching, I have been your host Vert343, signing off. Peace out, gentlemen.